Welcome to the 40k Fireside podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40k with your hosts Vik VJ and David Gaylord.
Hey, welcome everyone. It's morning time, but Vik and I are on dad mode, so mornings are okay for us.
Hello, everyone.
Guys, we've got some exciting news. We're going to be talking about the balanced Dataslate and the phone it in today, but we've got some exciting news. I've been working on something for about a little over 3 months now, full time, and it's something I think is really going to revolutionize the way that people play tournament games. I think if you're a competitive player, or even if you're a casual player, this is a game-breaking change for the game in terms of competitive play. So I'm going to jump straight in because this is something that I've been developing in the background and working with over 15 people to make this work. So let's go over here. This is called Atlas. Now, Atlas you can jump to if you go to 40k Fireside. This is our website. If you have never been here, this is our website, and you can click Start Atlas free. So if you've got a 40kfiresideaccount.com, if you've got an account there, you can jump on the free version and you can get 3 matchups for free. Otherwise, we've got a premium and pro plan as well. So you can jump to 40k Fireside, click Start Atlas for free, and you can get started like literally today. If you've got a tournament this weekend, you can get started. But back to it. What is Atlas? Atlas is your pocket coach. And when I mean that, what I envisioned was someone can get a pairing at their tournament and they can look up direct commentated matchup guidance for whatever matchup they're playing. For example, you're playing Adeptus Custodes and you're playing the triple land raider build. You can get direct matchup guidance on how to play the entire game from people that specialize in the faction that are absolutely top players. For example, you could see Adeptus Custodes versus Astra Militarum. We've got Nassim, who's our coach for Custodes, and you can get their coaching links and stuff like that as well. It tells you this is a very good matchup for Custodes into Grizzled with a typical double Dawn infantry list. The guard shooting doesn't line up well into the Land Raiders, as the TE12 2+ saves are very hard for them to shoot through. Key points: stay out of melter range in the early game, use Land Raider to hold mid-board objectives, and act as outposts for the Custodian Guard. I mean, that's super knowledgeable. You can check out deployment, key units, you can look at Astra Militarum. They've got a whole overview for the detachment here. But the most important part, and this is the part I love the most, is you can find the dual perspective. And for me, this is like the real game changer here. And honestly, even for someone like myself, this completely changes the way which I have access to information, I guess. And so I'm a contributor for like 4 of these factions. But for example, let's say I'm going to a tournament playing Astra Militarum. I may have a pretty good idea about how to play these matchups, right? But I can go and get my opponent's perspective on how to play it really quickly. So Vik, obviously you're a contributor for Eldari and Sisters of Battle as well. But I can go and get your opinions on how to play it, right? So you can see Grizzled Company provides Astra Militarum an incredibly strong, well-balanced set of rules. They have a significant advantage of output and resources throughout the game. They have a huge advantage on durability and out OCS. It sounds bad, and it is. They're a much more stronger army than Eldari currently. But we have a significant advantage in speed, and read the section below to tackle the matchup. You can see the critical units to manage are Kasrkin and Chimeras, and that's the win condition for us. So I already know going into the game that the way that Eldari can win is by managing Kasrkin and Chimeras. So if I hold them back and don't give them up easy, that's going to give me a great macro strategy to play the game. I mean, even for someone like me, who's played hundreds and hundreds of games of Astra, of Guard, I can still learn stuff from an app like this. For me, this is crazy. And by the way, guys, we have this populated in a master matrix. So every single army in the game, with a caveat, there's no GSC done yet. We're getting there. There's Deathwatch coming. And of course, I have Emil coming to do Deathwatch as well. And we have Space Wolves coming in a bit here. But you can see every single one of these cells has information in it. Dark Angels versus Astra. Boom. We've got Kid from Team USA applicant and a really strong player in America. Every single one of these. This is over 15 people contributing to this. I built the entire platform, of course, but over 15 people are contributing to all of these cells here, which is an enormous... I think this might be the biggest repository of 40k knowledge maybe ever constructed in one singular place. So you can Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Like, so, like, whatever matchup you're going into, you have enormous amount of information. You can also go on tournament results. So this uses tournament data to populate average differentials across the top tables. So it only takes top table games.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, that's clever.
You can actually go and check out. You'll see it'll have a pro rating of what someone thinks a matchup is. There's so many cool features in this. You can have a pro rating, and it also shows you what the tournament results are, which I think is really interesting. So you get like multiple layers of information here combining into one place to give you a really good estimate. So pros think it's really good, but in tournaments it doesn't necessarily hash out that much, which to me tells me that you're probably missing a key interaction or a key macro strategy when people just play at tournaments. So.
Dude.
It's
Dude, this is so clever. Like, I've obviously been contributing to it quite a bit. And as I contribute to it, a lot of the matchups I've been filling and writing up, I've been seeing the counter discussion about it. And this is a resource which I don't think I've ever seen exist in 40K up to this point. So props to you, dude. This is very, very clever.
Well, props to everyone, because we've been like getting all the contributors in here has been crazy. But it doesn't stop there. Of course, this is one part of it. Of course, you know, if you know me, I have a background in machine learning engineering, AI, and that's been my career for about 10 years now. So I thought, you know what? No one's come up with a really good way to do pairings. And I thought, why don't we go through and actually just finally build a pairing agent that's extremely good into doing pairings, right? And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to go do that. So I built the world's first pairing agent using a couple of different AI models in conjunction. It is extremely powerful. It will pair me to a draw almost every time. And in my opinion, I'm probably one of the top pairers in the world, or it's definitely something I'm extremely comfortable with. So if you go to the practice pairings, you can click lock and roster. If you're on a pro version, you can get an AI roster analysis. This will tell you and give you information around who the first defender is, second defender is likely. It gives you all the insights of the AI model to analyze what you should start pairings with. So if you're not really experienced with pairings, you could use this to give you a huge bootstrapping. But let's open the pairing tool. We'll go with Atlas V1. And if you're on premium, you can use Atlas V1 or random. Pro users can use Atlas Pro. And you can even get boards here. So let's go mission and terrain. We'll go Crucible of Battle, Hammer and Anvil maybe on WTC. You can co-pair with Atlas, by the way. So if you're playing a tournament, Atlas can pair right in front of you and give you guidance on how to do that. So, and this is the pairing simulator. So I don't know, Vic, if you did much pairings with Team England, but doing one simulation with someone else over Discord can take like 40 minutes to do one simulation and just to discover like what's going on. And so I'm doing this in real time. You can see I'm picking boards here and I'm just clicking through random selections here. But you can see it says, here's what your opponent's attacking with, here's what you're defending with, here's what you're accepting into your attackers. I mean, this is a really great marriage of someone who has like obviously direct game knowledge and building it out into a functional UI. And so you can see like layout 1 gives you everything. It says your, target estimate is 12, which means you're down by 3. And you can kind of see all your history here as well. You could save this as well. You can save the session like my session. So if you want to export this to someone else in your team, be like, hey, here's kind of what happened. I think this is a good opening. That's really good. And we're building this out. I haven't worked on any features for the past 2 weeks. I've just been working on the user flow. So we're going to be doing lots of stuff with this. There's some other stuff. There's
keep going.
There's Deployment Master, which I really like as well. So if you're just playing at a tournament, for example, man, I've been working till like 2 a.m.
No, stop. This is too much. What's about to come here? This is fantastic.
You can. So I'm playing a super major next weekend. Well, tomorrow, sorry. And I haven't gotten a lot of sleep. But you can actually click on all these things here, and it'll tell you everything on how to deploy. We're going to be fleshing this out and building this out even more, and probably bring it in for faction specific. So you can have like a repulsor executioner on here, see where that needs to move. Some move blocking, howling banshees or something like that. But you can literally get your pairing, go to your deployment guide, click on this and be like, okay, here's how to play, here's how to stage everything, move your range shooting turn 1. We're going to have commentary on all these boards and stuff like that as well. So you can imagine like the level that your opponent can operate at this, like for the first 2 or 3 turns, if they follow Atlas guidance precisely, is really, really powerful. And I think it's a huge leveling up for the community, I think. So that's the deployment master. We've also got the early game algorithm. This is for free tier users as well. I took the early game algorithm and I distilled it down into a decision tree. So you can check like what armies you're playing against, what type of armies your opponent is, what boards they're playing, if you have a drop advantage on deployment, can you punish their staging? Does your opponents have shooting threats? Do they have like pressure accesses onto your expansion or not? And then you can take out all the information from the early game algorithm, which was a really popular masterclass we had, and it'll give you a really high level macro strategy, for example. So you can see it like treat turns 1 and 2 as attrition, plus control zone control the window before primary race. So if you this is because you're playing it's a stat check army. Basically, it's saying don't worry about holding primary on turn 1 and 2. Focus on attrition based play to begin with. So as you can see in the output, it's fine to forfeit your expansion primary early if you take higher attritional trades and catch up on the matchup because you can score heavily later. So that's like a little helper right there. We've got Atlas tools. So you can find the charge probability. You can like, you know what everyone always needs to know? It's like lethal versus sustain, right? I think that's like the most common question all the time. So you can be like, oh, I'm strength 8 versus toughness 10, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, guys, all of this works on mobile as well. I developed an entire mobile app. We've got a quiz master there as well, so you can generate quizzes about your faction. Because for me, like I always need to learn like the gun profiles and stuff like that. So sometimes I just generate like 10 questions. And we're going to have this soon, so it's tailored to your list, for example. And you can go through and be like, see how you did and stuff. So you can just riffle through that before your tournament or something. And yeah, this is it. And you can see we have a mobile version as well. Of course, you need to be able to use it. Of course, it's not going to sign me in at the moment, but you need to be able to use it at a tournament. But it's fully functioning on the mobile side. So there we go, guys. It's 40k Fireside. You can jump on 40k Fireside. If you've got an account, you literally just register or click Start Atlas free. You can get 3 matches.
Honestly, the plan's also extremely reasonably priced, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I haven't talked about that.
Yeah, dude, I think like the price point just makes it very accessible for most people. This is a tool which I think a lot of people can just have in their back pocket. And the information is so much more accessible than going through hundreds and hundreds of articles, trying to pick out 1 or 2 pieces of information. You're not going to get the absolute entire picture. Warhammer 40k is discretionary. You still have to learn to deal with situations. But this just pushes you a chunk of the way there towards knowing what to do. It gives you your backbone.
Yeah, imagine every matchup you go into, you feel like you've already played the game once. That's huge, right? That means that you could, instead of going 3 and 2, you'd go 4 and 1. Instead of going 2 and 3, you'd go 3 and 2. You know, how many of those games have you lost by like 4 points, right? And then you've been like, well, if I just knew this beforehand, I would have won that game, right? That's huge. And the guys, the plan is ridiculously cheap. Through 40k Fireside, I think from the get-go, I think Vik and I have also been of the opinion that learning 40k shouldn't be expensive. And so for a premium account, which has access to basically everything apart from that pro AI model, you can get that for £8 a month. That's crazy. So if you're playing a tournament that costs you a couple of $100 in ticket, plus accommodation and train ticket, this is not even scratching the surface on that. So £8 a month. And then the pro tier you can get for, I think it works out to be like £11 a month or something like that. Sorry, my brain is completely
no worries, dude. So it's basically it is extremely well priced. I think. I think it's going to be super popular, dude. So yeah, props to you, man. Well played with that one.
Well played.
Well played. GG.
So that's Atlas. Check it out. This is literally their launch now. We've had it in beta for a couple of weeks here, and we've already had people at tournaments using it and stuff like that. Everyone I show it to the tournaments is like, dude, what the fuck? This is crazy. So you can believe that I'm going to build Atlas into the app for Warhammer. So you've got a feature you want to see on it, then it's going to exist. If you think, hey, I really want to see this here, or I really want to be able to do this, I want to be able to talk to Atlas to ask it, does a knight bring a killer land raider in combat on average? We're going to have stuff like that. It's going to be the one app you're going to need to play Warhammer. So yeah, okay, that's Atlas. It took a little longer.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sweet. People try it out. Leave some comments on this video. Obviously, you can give Dave feedback as well via the app, and I think Dave has huge plans to keep developing this as well. So your community feedback is going to be big for him. So
100%. There we go.
Sweet.
Okay, let's get into some balanced data slate. How about that, man?
Dude, speaking about things that can do everything like Atlas. Good timing. Nice. So, Dave, I have a story about the Twin Lands. So this data sheet was released, right, without points on our group chat. And also on our Discord, people were chatting about it. And people were like, oh, this is so busted, so busted. And I looked at the data sheet. I looked at the models. That's what I usually do that. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. I can see, he's got a couple of guns and stuff. Let's read the data sheet. Okay, you've got a few weapons there. The gun drone's hitting on fives. Great. I don't think this is really going to change the way the Tau play. That was my initial take. Then I started looking a little bit deeper, Dave, because for some reason this suit has a 2+ armor save and a 4+ invulnerable save, despite looking like a crisis suit.
Yeah, obviously, man. Yeah.
Next, the weaponry on this guy, it's a vehicle, so it can fire pistols alongside its weapons. But even before I realized that rule exists, the XV pulse pistol is not a pistol. So actually, they fire every single gun on that list. It's not just that they fire some of them if they're stuck in combat.
Yep.
That is a lot of shots. That's about 15 more shots than I expected there to be on this data sheet. Yep. Because I read the Shardstorm Burst system as a pistol, and I thought the XV Pulse pistol must be a pistol. So I was like, okay, when they're in combat, they're actually punching pretty hard and shooting into combat pretty hard. But then they're vehicles, so they can fire absolutely everything. There is a huge volume of output in shooting, melee, and they're tanky, and they're 160 points. No.
Completely busted. In our group chat, when this got spoiled for our Ignite group chat, it literally, the conversation went, someone posted this and I said, wow, that seems, and they were like, this is really, really strong. And I said, oh, I don't really get it. And they're like, oh, it has everything. And I was like, okay, that's really, really good. And then people were speculating, oh, how many points do you think it was going to be? And I said, well, Games Workshop printed Necrosaur Amnitor for 160 points, so it's probably just going to be 160 points. And lo and behold, we were right. This thing is completely busted for its points. This things. It has a guy called TJD on our Discord. Shout out to him, the Phoenix Lord of spreadsheets. Did some calculations, and this has the output of around about 300 points for Tau, which is mental, by the way. That's just in shooting. So obviously it's combat as well. But
Dave, it's more than that, because sure, the output is extremely efficient, but this is on top of a multitude of rules which actually benefit Tau hugely, because they do output in melee, they have charge defense, and they can operate independently without having to be marker lit, because they have sustained hits and ignore cover built into their datasheet, on top of fire and fade that you can use reactively, and they scout early game.
Yep.
They have absolutely everything beyond just output efficiency, but they have the output efficiency on top of it, which is wild.
You know what's crazy is the neo capacitor shields. Basically, like, there's going to be so many games where your opponent is like, you got the Twin Lance on your expansion or something like that, ready to push their deployment zone. They're like, okay, I'm gonna try and hit a 7-inch charge into you, right, with some guardsmen. The Twin Lance is like, well, at the start of the charge phase, take a battle shock test, and your opponent's like, oh damn, I failed. And then they go to charge and they can't CP reroll. And they're at -1 to charge. I mean, that alone is an insanely good ability, right? Like, it seems small, but like, just trying to get like a tank into charge to contest an expansion or something like that is like really, really powerful. Not to mention the fact that I don't know why, for some reason, they get sustain 1 and ignore cover. And then they also get a better than Riptide ability, which is they get to move for free at the end of the fight phase. I don't really know why, because it's not even conditional on them being in combat or having shot. I don't know. If you go second, your opponent's into the fight phase, you can phantasm this unit.
Yeah. Why? Why is that? Yeah,
you can scout 8 if you go second, then move 6. Right?
Yeah,
so
in the 14. Opponent's turn and your turn. Yeah. I didn't actually notice that either. I thought it was just our fight phase. No, not like
How
this.
How does that make sense? And then you have a 160 point unit that can hit as if it's 300 points. So it doesn't even matter if you don't completely obliterate everything or if it dies afterwards. You've probably traded up anyway for a unit that had insane mobility. Oh, you can charge after that. So you can move 14 inches, then you move 10, you shoot a bunch of shit, and then you charge because their combat was also good.
I'm going to bring a voice of reason into this.
Okay, go for it.
And think about it in terms of the context of Tau as a competitive army. I think the negative side of this is that this is an auto take. This is probably one of the best, if not the best, data sheet in the game, especially for its points.
Yep.
But in terms of a competitively viable army, how much does this shift Tau towards being one of the best armies in the game? In my opinion, I think it makes it extremely competitively viable, Tau. But I don't think it pushes Tau as a faction beyond the threshold of overpowered, personally. What do you think, Dave?
So for an 8-man team roster, we in Team New Zealand were already playing Tau. Right? I actually thought Tau was quite a good faction in teams, and there are some Storm Surge builds on GW terrain which are pretty oppressive as well, believe it or not. So I already thought they were quite good. And I think this pushes him up into a top 3 spot for sure.
Wow. In teams? Or just you mean singles as well?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I think wide range of good matchups.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think Tau are already really good. I mean, Tau are really board dependent. Like, if you're playing Games Workshop, Tau are a lot better, right? There are some layouts which are completely screwed up. Like you go first and then it's not even a game. So in that terrain format, I think it's going to be very, very, very strong. UKTC is a little bit more tougher because the objectives are a lot more dense now, and WTC is a little bit tougher. But I think even on those 2 terrain formats, it's going to be very powerful. And this is, I think this unit is a real difference maker. Some units get printed and they're not having a huge impact. I think this is going to have a real impact as well.
Okay, my reasonable take number 2. The reason I think that the power of this is a little bit mitigated compared to, say, Necrons or, some of the other releases of kill team units that we've had, is that this is an epic hero. And remember, we had that discussion about units that are kind of single. You can only take one of them and the relative power of them. Necrons had a bit of a problem because the Catan all came in, and so did this Amantar and some new detachments, all this stuff. So you ended up getting a lot of new stuff. Tau just get the Twin Lance, which I think is the correct design space. They've obviously overcooked this datasheet, but I kind of like just a slight overcooking of an epic hero datasheet. I think they may have, slightly burnt this one.
You're on fire today, mate.
Yeah, I got it, mate. Fireside.
I completely agree as well. And this is the change that we both said as well, is that make things that are strong epic heroes and they don't feel game warping. And I don't think this feels game warping. Like, you play against Tau, this is just going to be a strong unit, which you're like, man, that unit is really strong. Like mine is Calgar, for example, right? But at 190 points, you're still playing it. 200, you're still playing it. So there's obviously clearly some room there to move it up. This is the Vitrix Honor Guard of Tau, 100%. If Vitrix Honor Guard were epic hero, I think it's a classic point of it has one too many abilities, right? Which is what it has one too many abilities. Its toughness, wounds profile too high. Its mobility is too good. Its output is too good. That's exactly the problem that Vitrix Honor Guard have. So I would hope that even at 6 wounds apiece, you'd still play these guys 160 points.
So here's my thinking, because this seems like an Eldar model to me. It punches, shoots, and has tricks, right? If this was an Eldar model, one of these guys, not both of them, one of them would have been 160 points minimum, and people would have complained about it. That's the kind of level of external balance that they've gone wrong on the points costing on this unit. Yeah, it's true, though. Think about it. If this guy had pointy ears, which he does, by the way, and was called a Phoenix Lord, right? The Phoenix Court of the Lance. That's the Shining Spear Phoenix Lord. With this set of rules and just one set of these guns, not 2. This is minimum 160 points for that one model.
Yep, and he could join Shining Spears and Scout 6, Scout 8 and stuff like that. I would agree,
Yeah.
The problem is, so I think, for example, we're going to, let's derail into a different conversation for a second. I was really looking forward to the end of 10th edition, because the end of 9th edition and the end of editions, if you didn't play 9th edition and 8th edition, are always kind of heralded as the golden era of the edition, right?
Yeah, true.
And this is the last balanced data slate before as the edition ends. So whatever we were with here, we're expecting to be almost 0 shakeups before the next edition. I think this is going to be the first edition for about 5 years where we're not going to have a golden era, I don't think. Where actually we're going to have an era dominated and prevalently by still 2 or 3 armies, which I think Necrons and Ultramarines and maybe potentially Tal, depending though. I want to caveat that a lot though. And I think that's a real shame, to be honest with you. I remember the end of ninth edition. I remember, Vic, you had your like, your Eldaria. Warhammer Fest
Oh,
was for me that
beautiful,
kind of
mate.
end of ninth edition. You had Eldaria that could like Alpha Strike, you like
Oh,
jinx someone, like
yeah.
lethal hit them with the bikes
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. There were, I think, in Warhammer Fest, there were the top eight, like the top 15 was like 15 different armies,
Yeah, it was a very good
and
time.
that for me, I was really looking forward to having the game in a place where it was really open. But I think that we're not going to see that in this edition, which is a shame. And I think we'll talk about. It's hard not to wrap up the balanced data slate as we're still talking about it. But I think when we wrap it up, it's a bit sad. I think.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, this is going to sound so weird. This is the hottest of takes. This is, I think, one of the best armies they balanced in this balanced data slate was Tau
What's Tau?
with Twinlands. Just adding that data sheet into the Tau mix, I think, has given Tau what they need to feel great for the players who are playing them.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think that's a really good take because I would love to see that replicated for a bunch of other armies that have been shit for the entire edition, right? Give them a nice epic hero that gives them exactly what they need, get the points right. And I think that is such an obvious model for making something good and bringing up a faction. I mean, there's so many ways to bring up a faction, but why don't we jump into some of the points changes, I guess you could say, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, they're pretty limited.
Yeah, I mean, but having said that, I was the only proponent in the the Vic, of
Yeah.
of putting these Wraith units down. I mean,
Dude,
I'm not
what a huge buff.
professional. I'm not a professional Eldar player,
Yep.
and I didn't think they would take my advice seriously. But I'm just going to put it out there. These are the only units that went down.
Okay, here's my problem, and I think this is worthy of a rant on my end, right? People have a problem with reactive moves only when they have pointy ears. They have zero problem with a 6-inch reactive move across the game, right? But when Eldar have a D6 plus 1 reactive move, it is the end of the world. Now, we have literally looked at a data sheet which has an end of fight phase on both your turn and opponent's turn of 6 inches, a fire and fade. They cannot accept that Eldar have that as their defensive mechanism. Fine, removed. Why do you have to put the points up on Asuman? That literally makes zero sense. And if you want an example of the bias in whatever is left of the balance team at the moment, and I don't think it's one person, I think it's a multitude of people, them putting up Asuman tells you everything you need to know about where they are with balancing Eldar based on the bias of the people that are left in that team. And then the Wraith Guard, Wraith Lord, and Wraith Blades, that's probably the first thing that came in. Someone has said, oh yeah, these units are a little bit weaker, we need to give Eldar something. And I think they've taken out buffs on other stuff and put a nerf on Asuman along the way. That is the only timeline where Asuman ends up with a nerf.
It's like 135 points. How much can you pay for one bottle? That's a joke. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's genuinely a joke. I mean, they go, okay, we're buffing some stuff, so we're going to take the one viable, like not viable, but the one build around unit that Eldar are commonly using now, which is not even that open.
They're not even using it very much. No. As in, I tried to use it. I made a video and I was like, I'm going to get Asuman in because actually the Asuman unit gives you something that works against Catan if you layer about 3 buffs on it.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, you have to use ignore modifiers with ignore cover with full rerolls to wound out of a Falcon, and then you have to charge them as well. So in order for you to kind of half kill a Catan. But that's the best we had for that job, and they put that up 10 points. So there's a story behind that, and if anyone who was involved in making that decision has listened to this, shame on you. That is a terrible decision.
You know that SpongeBob scene where it says like 2 hours later, like that cutscene? I can imagine that with Eldari 3 buffs later. The Catan doesn't die, and you're like, well, that's game over.
Right. I also want to make another comment about bias here because I think that the balance approach has changed a little bit. It used to be that actually the balance changes were quite creative. They were different things to what you read about. They caught a lot of problems earlier. I don't know if you remember, like when Manticores were very good. They hadn't really been put out there, but they were nerfed in advance, right? Some of those little creative catches of future problems are actually quite intelligent And a lot of that has disappeared here.
Yeah.
I think now you're left with, okay, what is the big latest Art of War video saying? What's the community Reddit post saying? Right? We've got to filter some of that through into our data sheets. And it's very apparent with the biases that they have in favor of some armies and being very kind with them and against other ones, like Eldar here.
I would completely agree. In fact, a point I was going to make in the sum up here is that I actually think the last 2 balanced data slates have been some of the worst we've seen the entire edition.
Agreed.
And I actually think, and I didn't enjoy playing against Eldar, and they were extremely good against the armies I played, but the LGT meta was significantly better than the meta we're in right now.
Agreed.
So the meta has digressed into a worse place, balance patch after balance patch here, for 2 balance patches in a row. Significantly worse place. And we went through some dark times. 18 Vitrix Honor Guard, Catan at full power. I mean, I think we're still in that Catan era. But it's actually, it's worrying for the direction of the game that the game can actually get worse in terms of balance. In fact, it would have been better if they just not done anything at all almost, right? But the introduction of some of these, in the case of Vitrix Honor Guard, new models, they've really just completely missed the mark on it. And that's disappointing to see, because I know that they it's no surprise to anyone, they have a huge playtesting team, and I know that the playtesters are good players, right? So I think here's an interesting point. I think everyone in the community knows that there are top players that are playtesters. Vik and I are not one of these. We're not associated with how the game is balanced, but you may know a playtester or whatever like that. There's no, these guys can't keep it secret forever, but it is so. Let's go with the exception that everyone knows that there is a balance team and a playtesting group. Now, it's difficult, I think, for people to understand or know that there's a lot of playtesters, but see that the balanced data slates don't seem to translate to the equal skill level of those playtesters, right? So what I'm saying is, in a roundabout way, I've just woken up, is that how can they have a lot of really good playtesters at the game, but the balanced data slates translate to be what is probably the worst one I think we've seen, and basically a phone-in job, to be honest with you. Like, if you're at work, you're phoning it in, this is a whole bunch of nothing here, right? And in a time where people are complaining about Necrons more than they've ever complained about Aldari, I think. So, yeah, it's difficult. I don't know how they... I think if you're a player like myself, I don't know how they have a playtesting team, but have balanced data slates like this.
The only pathway is if you don't listen or get feedback from playtesters. And that feels more apparent here, because there's no way that goes through a playtest team and then they're like, you know what, Necrons, let's only put them up 10 points on these models. That doesn't happen. That's impossible, because there is no player who has a lot of competitive experience who would say it's correct that the Catan only go up 10 points. Right? Okay. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Let's get to Catan, because this is the butt of the joke, really, I think. By the way, guys, as a percentage of the total cost of the Catan point, right? They're about 300 points, right? So, 10 points on 300. It's like 3%, right? Do you think Catan should go up 3% in their cost? What? How does that make sense? You're talking about a model which is game defining if you kill or don't kill. It like completely binary decision in so many games, which is, by the way, like one of the worst ways to play Warhammer, right? Did you kill it? Did you not kill it? That's why people hate, big Land Raider stuff. They hate big knights, and that's why they hate Catan. Because if you kill it or don't kill it, that summarizes the entirety of the game that you've just played, right? You go and talk to your friends like, yeah, I went all in on the Catan. Guy scanned me on some 4-ups and then made some 5-ups. He lived, punched me back, reanimated, and then I lost. It's like, that is not a good play experience. And to think that it would be acceptable to put up Catan 10 points is frankly mind-boggling, right? If you're playing Awakened Dynasty, which I think is definitely now the most powerful Necron build, your list went up like 30 points. 3-0.
Yeah. I have a huge number of problems all edition with Necrons because I think they've been let off lightly consistently.
Consistently.
Because I still think, even outside of the Catan and Amantar, there is stuff which should also have gone up in points in the past, or at least now.
Yeah.
Do you remember the time when Doomsday Arcs went down
Man,
as
do
a
you remember
compensatory
Dwarf?
buff? And then where is the touch on the big bricks of Necron Warriors? Where is the touch on Illumino Zeros? That datasheet is cracked.
Yep. Oracle could have gone up. Royal Wardens could have gone up. Reanimator could have gone up. Like,
Yep.
there's so many sensible changes here. Necrozor and the Tower is still auto-include at 185 points. That's how broken this guy was. They've nerfed his ability so he doesn't affect monsters or Titanic. He is still an auto-include at 185 points. That's how strong this guy is. Completely broken datasheet as well. You can imagine how strong this guy was when he buffed your entire army with sustain at 160 points. Like, not even remotely balanced. And in Awakened Dynasty, you can get him back up. So if he's not hard enough to kill with lone op fights first, 12 attacks, some at flat 3, he can get back up on top of that. You know.
I actually am going to say this. You know, I know you mentioned that people are complaining about Necrons, but the complaints are not fierce until this very moment, right? I feel like people are much more accepting of these kinds of stat check armies than they are of other armies. Even Guard, people, you would think that Guard is kind of favored in the community, but people were starting to complain a little bit about it, and now you're hearing the complaints about Recon Guard as well. And I feel like those complaints are more serious than the way we're complaining about Necrons. We're like, oh yeah, these guys are busted, whatever. Rather than really raging against it like we do with some other factions. I think this is a community problem as much as it is a balance problem. We're much more accepting of these easy to play stat checky armies than we are of anything that requires skill.
Oh, well, I think I think I know what you're saying as well, and that armies that are more nuanced in their strength, like maybe, you know, the ability to like move really fast, move block, fire and fade, stuff like that, or just have really good OC combined with move blocking, which Guard does really well. People tend to complain about those interactions a lot more, and they tend to somewhat accept, oh, you know, Catan 4-up, you know, stuff like that. But I mean, you didn't have to be a genius to go to a tournament to see that everyone complains about Necrons as well, you know? Like, when you see table after table after table, Necron, you know? It's like, that was the last tournament for me.
Okay. You know the 20 Necron Warriors, David?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
So the 20 Necron Warriors, I personally think it is unacceptable that they have existed all edition. Like, I think the way that brick works on the table is unacceptable for it to be reasonably priced. That should be extortionately priced, that you have to compromise your army to run one of that combination, which I don't think you need to do. Bad game design, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree. I mean, Necrons have obviously been insane all edition. Well, they've been very, very, very strong all edition. They've never had a dip, so to speak, which, yeah, it makes you wonder. So, I mean, those are the changes. So, Necrons have had changes to Star Shatter as well. So, they've gone.
You can't use the strats stuff, right?
The balance design here is just completely flawed, by the way. So, GW have gone, okay, Star Shatter and Pantheon of Woe, those are the two best ways to play Catan, right? So what we're going to do is, instead of dealing with the Catan datasheet, we're going to nerf the detachments. So Pantheon of Woe was actually a pretty cool detachment.
Yeah.
It was like, you could play multiple Catan, they all had to take enhancements, which means you had like 5 enhancements. It was actually quite cool. The problem wasn't the detachment. The problem was the datasheets. The problem is Catan, the datasheets. They're too hard to kill. They're too tough. They have too much output, right? So instead of nerfing the datasheet, they nerf the detachment. So now all of a sudden, the detachment is completely unplayable, right? So if you're a casual player or something like that, you're like, oh, I really like Pantheon of Woe, it's kind of my jam. Completely nerfed to fuck, right? And then, same with Star Shatter. They're like, well, you know, Catan, this is the main detachment they play. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to change that detachment, right? Okay. So what this does is it means that people just shift from the dominant detachments to the next best detachment. And if the underlying datasheet hasn't actually been addressed, the problem is just as big as it was before, right? You're playing Awakened Dynasty, which, by the way, tons of people were, right? You're playing like 20 Necron Warriors, Ceres, Necrozor Anatar, Silent King, maybe a Deceiver, maybe a Nightbringer, right? That build went up like 20 points, something. Yeah. Just as strong. Yep. So the ability to miss something like that is just so mind-bogglingly poor of a job I don't know, man. That's 10. How can you? I don't know. It's just so out of touch with reality. If they think that 10 points on Katana is just, I don't know.
I'm unwilling to accept that the people who are writing these data slates are bad players. I think that's not likely to be the case. But I think there are multiple of them who play Necrons. There is no way they get away with this without some bias. It's like, okay, let's nerf Pantheon of Woe because we know in the back of our mind that this still functions, what we're doing. And I want to be really clear here. This cannot be just Josh. I don't want to see a single comment about that. It cannot be, because there is a massive team behind him, excluding the playtesters that are making these decisions. And I'm sure Josh, as the lead person, is completely bogged down with the next edition. So there is a lot going on here, and this is extreme bias towards Necrons that has been apparent all edition. But as a community, we need to rail against this stuff rather than just accept it, which we're doing now, but there's no more balance updates. So we accept it.
To be clear, I don't want to see stuff in the comment section about like talking about Josh and stuff like that, because he works within a structure of, he is unfortunately the face of the balance team as we know him, but he works in a structure of Games Workshop, which I'm sure has a lot of shit going on.
100%.
But the reality is that we can still complain that it's not acceptable to have bad balance just because you got a new edition coming out. It's not acceptable to print models with egregious points cost just because you want to make money. That's not acceptable, right? Us as a community, we've got to keep being vocal because we know Games Workshop listens to stuff like this. Printing Necros or Amnatar to make a bunch of money is not acceptable. That's the same thing they've done with Twin Lance. That's the same thing they did with Wardens of Ultramar. It's the same thing they did with Vitrix Honor Guard, right? That's exactly what they've done here. You know, that's not acceptable. As a competitive community, we've got to be sharp on Games Workshop, in my opinion, to make sure that practices like this don't really continue, because we end up in a state that we're in right now. Oh, new Nightbringer model. Oh yeah. Well, turns out it's really competitive as well, right? Deceive is probably getting a new model sometime soon. Oh,
wait, but hold on a second. Why my Prince Uriel? He is not. Why is he not on the same tier, man? My Corsair Sky Reavers.
Granted, there are obviously there are examples to the contrary to that, of course. You know, the Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip. You know, I don't understand, and I think a lot of players in general don't understand how there is so much inconsistency with some of these releases, right? How do you get Vitrix Honor Guard on one hand, which I'm going to call the most broken of the releases so far, the 4 wound, you know, undercosted one.
Yeah.
And then you get Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip on the other hand. Like, I would literally rather have one Vitrix Honor Guard than the Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip, especially if it's the banner guy.
I love that.
That is, it's impossible to square. How do you go, as people who work in professional environments, and we've all got day jobs and stuff like that, how do you just see that path of decision making go through a structured environment of like, is this good for competitive play, ? And be like, yes, 85 points to turn to Prime. Yes. That guy's so fucking bad, by the way. Oh my god.
Oh, so glorious.
Yeah. Bro. So I fully expect Necrons to be, I think they're the best army in the game. I think the Vik and Dynasty build basically just writes itself as well. And you can play 1 Catan, 2 Catan. Hey, you play 3 Catan, it's no problem. You know, they went up bugger all points, mate. And you're still going to be living in a binary world of did you kill them or not.
Yeah. How did they get away with that?
They're still going to complain when they fail some 4-ups too. They're going to be like, oh man, I failed every 4-up and you shot me to death. That's so broken. And you're going to say, look, mate, I can't kill you in combat, so don't complain when I have to shoot you off the board. And that's why I'm playing Ultramarines. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a very stale meta into 11th edition, I think. And Necrons are going to be probably the main reason for that, in my opinion.
I think so. Why don't we go talk about Space Marines? Because I think actually Space Marines is a faction which they've made some good changes for, I think.
They might have done enough, because it's easy to forget that there's been layered nerfs here, because we had a little bit of an earlier nerf on a few things.
Yep. The Space Marines, to be clear, got hit the most out of any faction. And it's a pretty wide margin, to be honest with you. Ultramarines got nerfed more than any faction. I think they probably got nerfed 2 or 3 times harder than Necrons. So the largest change is that old Gar, minus Calgar, is gone.
That's big.
We now call him Marnius Calgar in Oak Coffin. So he's gone, which, by the way, was by far the best data sheet in the entire Space Marine range. Him with the 4 Field Net Bane with the 2 extra guys, 3 Vitrix Honor Guard. Very good. It's what I'm playing this weekend. He's gone. And that's a really sizable nerf. You know, imagine your best data sheet just gets taken out of every list that was auto-include. Big change, and particularly because Vik, he synergized the best with the new Blades of Ultramar attachment, because you need to play Marnius Calgar to get multiple doctrines, and the new Marnius Calgar, and I think it's Gravgar as people call him, is terrible. Like, legitimately...
He's Terminator one, right? Is he Terminator?
Terminator Armor, sorry, yeah. Armor of Anti-Locust, some shit like that.
Cool, okay.
I don't know, I've never played him, mate.
There is 140.
He's 140 for a 6-wound model, which is pretty good in combat, but other than that has 0 defensive mechanisms. So he's 6 wounds at 2 up, 4 up. So he's pretty easy to pick off. And he's Space Marine, he moves 6, right? And he's pretty core to your army, so you can't really use him with no leeway there. So the new Calgar is bad, which is a pretty big nerf to Blades, which I think, given the Necron meta, was probably the best build. It's what I was playing at Manchester. So that's a pretty big nerf. And I actually think that this widens up the Ultramarines discussion a lot more, which I think is really good overall. Because now all of a sudden you've got a question of, do you play Marnius? Do you play Marnius and Bobby G? Do you play no Marnius and Bobby G? Do you play neither of them or MSU stuff? And I think that's really interesting. So I think that's a really positive change overall. And by the way, guys, I'm playing Ultramarines this weekend. I've played them for ages, right? And I think that these are good changes despite them being core nerfs to my army. Okay, Lieutenant Combi Weapon went up. Now,
okay.
Do you think that this is the best model in the game, Vik?
Bro, it's not the best model in the game, but it is. There is no need for Space Marines to have him with this rule set.
He's definitely good, but I'll tell you what, he's very good against like Eldar and Drakari and stuff like that. But against like Necrons and stuff, he's actually
doesn't do anything.
He's good, but he for 85 points, I'm not playing anymore. I think 80 points, maybe I'd play him, but for 5 more points, you can get a Captain in Gravis armor with the 2-up base save. And he can put himself in Tactical Doctrine for free because he has a free strat. And then he can react to move 6 as well. So there's a much better model to play at 90 points now. And the reality is of the Ultramarine changes, you have such a wide amount of data sheets that you're really upgrading and downgrading, side grading, upgrading a lot of different ways to achieve the same goal. So Ultramarines have that in spades, really. So I've replaced him with Gravis Captain in my list, personally.
I think the only reason you wouldn't run him at 85 is because the army is still good. I think if the army was at an average power level, external balance-wise, 85 points is still very, very good for the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. But now you're pushing to try to still stay as one of the best armies in the game. And I agree with you. I think maybe he doesn't make the cut on efficiency when you have other options.
That's a great point. Like if you're playing Grey Knights, for example, you'd probably play him.
Yeah, you're going to take him.
Like that. Yeah. And then we had Kato Sicarius, or Captain Sicarius, removed, who was quite strong. It was definitely going to be my go-to include if I thought something was getting nerfed. So Kato is gone.
Goodbye.
Captain Sicarius, sorry. He was very strong.
Yes.
And on WTC, I think he was lovely. He was very fun to play. Redemptor Dreadnought up 10 points. No one was playing that as of recent anyway, and Ballistus Dreadnoughts are better. We saw John Lennon play double Ballistus Dreadnought, double Repex, which is basically what I was playing. I was playing single Repex, triple Ballistus, kind of similar variants here. And I think Ballistus were fantastic. I never got off them, even when they went up 10 points. Repulsor Execution up 10 points. So I think if you're not a Necron player and you're not an Ultramarine player, and you see a unit like the Repulsor Executioner, which is getting taken in every single list, sometimes in double, which is a huge model, by the way, and you see that go up 10 points, you're like, dude, come on. That's taking the piss. Like, 10 points? Like, that's not even that's a love tap, That's like, yeah, we still want you to keep playing this, but we just need to keep it on the download so you can complain that it got nerfed a little bit, Like, that's just an excuse to have people, that you can tell people so that, I did get nerfed, That's a joke in my opinion. And I'm playing this weekend, Unit's so good.
I think, let's say they put another 10 points on Scouts, they put 10 points on the Ballistic Dread, and they only put 10 points to Repulsor Execution. That's a very different timeline here where the army starts to get squeezed on more of the units. But you're right here. They picked Redemptor and Repulsor Execution, so it feels like it's only the Repulsor Execution that got nerfed here, which is not enough. I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could have made all the 5-man units just 5 more points, like 5 points on intercessors, assault intercessors, stuff like that, maybe. And that would mean that you can't side grade out of the nerf, which I think is important. Wardens of Ultramar went up 15 points. I actually think this is probably the only sensible change that's been made.
Nicely done.
Yeah, this actually makes sense. At 105, you actually are considering whether or not you want to take them. I'm still playing them personally. They are great on the expansion because of OC2, but you're actually at the point where, like, well, they don't do a lot of damage. They kind of just stand there. But 105, they're still good. They give you the redeploy OC2. So yeah, this actually makes sense. I think this is a good change.
Yeah, nicely done. I think
all in all, Ultramarines taking a big nerf here. Well, they're losing Manius. It is the most sizable nerf of the balance, but I still think they're a top 3 army in my opinion.
Yeah, you know what? I know you're saying that they took the biggest nerf, but I think it's
the biggest nerf out of a sea of very mediocre.
Yeah, it didn't really hit the mark with it. You know, I think they undernerfed this by quite a bit. Both Necrons and Space Marines should have been a sea of small red, just so that cumulatively you get that 100-point increase on your army. You know, that's what the armies which need major nerfs get. And we've seen that time and time again, that armies get these 120-point nerfs. But we're not seeing it here for some unknown reason on the very, very best armies, which were clearly stronger than everything else. There's whatever the reason, it is the reason.
There we go. So that's basically I expect that the Ultramarines archetype will remain the same, and same with Necrons. So whatever the meta was before the balanced data slate, it's probably going to be reflective at the top for these 2 armies in particular here. And I think that that's probably the hallmark of an unsuccessful balanced data slate in some ways.
Yeah, it's just low effort, really, because realistically, there's not many changes anywhere else.
Yeah, I don't think there are. I mean, that's the sad part as well, right? So we have not many changes anywhere else when we know. Oh, so we have
a little bit on Custodies.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Custodians probably got some of the more points increases than anyone. Actually.
Yeah, because they got Draxus and the Custodian Guard.
Yep.
That's rude, though, to put it on. I understand, but it's a bit rude when you scroll down and you see Imperial Agents and you expect like a couple of greens, but instead you get a few reds. But that was a targeted nerf on Custodians. Just put them up the target. You know, just put the Land Raider and the Custodian Guard up.
Yeah, it's difficult things we're talking about here, man. Yeah. Necrozor Amnatar received a nerf as well. He no longer includes monsters and Titanic units, but he still gives, himself reroll 1s to wound. He gives himself sustained. He saw his lone op. He still gives his whole army, within 6 inches, 5-up feeling against mortal wounds, which means that if you are playing Star Shadow, your Silent King's -1 to damage, 5-up feeling against mortal wounds. He's still really good, man. Really, really powerful, I think.
Yeah. This is unnecessary, but it is what it is. Oh.
Yeah. So whether or not, I think people will. I mean, to be fair, he got nerfed and then also went up 20 points. I think people will still play him. He is such a good hedge against any combat army, which you can be a little bit vulnerable to because of its fights first heroic with flat 3 and extra attacks, I guess. He oftentimes generates 7-8 hits, right? With his flat 3 damage. He's like strength 10 AP3. Like, it can basically take the edge off any combat army's chance to kill your Katana or your big unit. So I think you'd probably still play him. He's still extremely good. So
it's a shame. They should have left the weakness to melee, really. Like, for example, I'm playing a lot with CSM at the moment. And I think I can make the matchup work to the point where at least it's kind of close until you incorporate this one model into the mix.
Yeah.
Even if they made this guy like not infantry, at least give me a chance to do something. But I haven't really got a good way of him not taking out a chunk of my chosen unit that's meant to try and kill a Catan and just tipping the efficiency against me.
Yep. We saw some changes to demons. Kairos and Lord of Change went up marginally. I don't even know if that was really required. Thousand Suns took a nerf because they played maybe those models.
Oh, what's Thousand Suns? I thought they got a buff. Am I making that up?
They just had Kairos and Lord of Change go up.
Oh, I see. No, I think they got no other changes. T-Suns.
Exactly right.
From that.
Otherwise, there's basically no changes anywhere else. Oh, I mean, Emperor's Children, Terminators went down.
Yeah, they're really cheap, the Terminators.
They actually are 5 models for 145 is less than 10 points a win.
That's-
And 4 went down as well.
They're really cheap. But yeah, Emperor's Children don't change. Actually, I was like scrolling through it and I was like, oh, Sisters, no changes. Admech, no changes. Okay, here we go. This is going to be like just a nothing. Eldar, the first data sheet read, and I was like, oh.
You know, we did the episode on the tier list episode on all the archetypes, for example, and there were some armies there which was just, I think it was kind of interesting as a retrospective because it really highlighted what armies haven't been great the entire edition. And you know, I was kind of hoping that for this balanced data slate they were just going to go, fuck it, we'll just buff the shit out of all these armies, you know, like what's the worst that can happen, you know? It's the end of the edition, nah, screw it, you know. And instead they've gone the opposite way of like, nah, we'll just like keep the status quo, which I think is a big miss in my opinion. And I think that's going to leave a mark on how people remember 10th edition, which I think Games Workshop maybe don't appreciate, is that when people think about like 9th edition, they think broken codex, broken codex, broken codex, but they think the end of 9th edition was amazing. People are going to think the same about 10th edition. They're going to say, yeah, overall the balance changes, but bringing the balance team in was the biggest thing that happened, obviously. But and things improved, but it didn't end well. And how you end, I think, is kind of important, personally.
The new codex releases were pretty good in the middle, but then there were a lot. So this is my overall take of 10th. That we saw at the start there was absolute chaos before, you know, they hired their balance team and did everything, and then you saw quite big improvements in both the balance updates and new codex quality, and then you saw a slip off when they started releasing lots of kill teams, and all the new units, and now you're seeing a slip off in the balanced data slates and the new codexes as well. So it's starting to fall apart a little bit, going back to old ways.
Yes, it's a slippery slope, this one, mate. And it's a little, I mean, yeah, it's disappointing. I think personally, I completely agree with everything you've said there. I preferred the codexes in 9th edition personally. I felt like they had more flavor in them, but I was also a fan of like the multi-stratagem thing as well. Hopefully in 11th edition, I think we add more layers of stratagems rather than just the 6 that you get for your detachment personally. I think that would be nice, but
you can do anything if you can maintain some balance. And the only thing it takes is catching the one or two things that come out way too strong. Let's say Amantar was released at 215 points. The Catan were all released 30 points more than where they were at the moment. Then all of a sudden you have a very interesting dynamic on your choices you make with that army. The Twin Lance, let's say it's released at 215. That is still a bargain for what you get. But it's a much more reasonable starting point for that unit. And it certainly doesn't make you go, oh, like this. Why? You obviously not thought about this at all.
Yep. And I think that, yeah, I completely agree. And I think that it would be nice if they moved faster. Like if they had more steps, but also they release them more frequently, even if it's smaller steps, right? Targeting particular units like they did with Vitrix Honor Guard. It'd be nice if we saw that more frequently. But at the same time, I think this 10th edition is going to be, it should be defined also by not only the armies that were successful, but those armies which just were allowed to linger in just nothingness, right? You know, like there are models and data sheets that are popular that have been garbage the entire edition, right? Tyranid Warriors, Hive Guard, Barber Gaunts or something like that. The whole, you know, to pick one faction that I own, which is in a cupboard which I've never opened, you know, I don't think that's the hallmark of good balance, personally. I think only taking this top-down approach of nerfing things at the top, which is, I think, historically what Games Workshop have done. You know, the one time they buffed AdMech completely, it was insanely strong when they did like an overhaul, which was a miss in my opinion. But the inability to just buff armies that are performing poorly is really, I think, the saddest story about balance in 10th edition. Although balance in 10th edition was a lot better than balance in 9th edition, of course, as well.
Agreed. Yeah, good takes.
Grey Knights.
Oh, Grey Knights. Just give them a full rewrite. Give me Grey Knights where I have 15 models in my army.
Just make them 3-up. So, you know, that's fine.
Yeah, make them 3-up. Give them really cool rules. Give me Fire and Fade on every model.
I would be fine with that. then the indicators are still big. I genuinely would be fine with that. Yeah. There we go. That's been the balanced data slate, or lack thereof, I think. It's an interesting one.
This is up there as one of the worst balanced data slates in my opinion. I think in the top few worst ones, alongside some of the 9th edition balance updates.
Or as we would call them back then, codex releases.
Awesome,
that's been the
guys.
episode. We'll catch you next time. And I'm playing Windsor this weekend.
Oh, good luck, Dave, with the Ultramarines.
Yeah, I made some changes to my list. I got rid of the Stern Guard, they were garbage, and I got rid of Uriel. I've got a Vindicator and 5 JPIs instead. And,
nice.
Mate, I look at my list and I'm like, this list has literally everything. I've got like great melee, I've got early skirmishing, I've got outflank shooting, I've got like insane shooting in general.
Nice.
Like, I'm thinking, this is a lot nicer than
you did a video on the members side, so if you guys about Ultramarines and I guess your list as well, it's make sure you join the YouTube membership, but the Discord's really the place to be. So if you want to join that, just join at the Discord level and get involved with all the conversation about quite a few different factions now. The community is growing across a number of factions, which is really good, with a few hundred people chatting away every day.
Yep, balanced data slates are always good times.
Yeah.
And remember to subscribe. Drop a comment of what you think would have been your change if you were writing the balanced data slate yourself.
And check out Atlas as well. And we'll see you guys next time by the Fireside.
See you guys later.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the 40k Fireside. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, drop us a comment, check out the YouTube members area, and we look forward to seeing you again next time by the Fireside.